speaking of small talk, like we were just having, I guess, kind of a lot of small talk. I call it like intro talk, you know, it's intro talk.
Yeah.
And that I think is somewhat valuable just to kind of shoot it a little bit, and to the audience, we were chatting a little bit about personality on a spectrum and stuff. And as podcast hosts and stuff, sending questions ahead of time and not, if you're listening to this and you've been a guest, the experience, So we're here with Diana, by the way.
Hi. Thank you for having me today.
Of course, you seem very bubbly and fun. I could already tell. And we're gonna talk about cannabis, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
tell me about cannabis in your life. Let's start big picture and then we'll whittle this down here. How has this been an important part of your life?
Well, it's been a part of my life more than it hasn't. I started when I was about, I'd say 13,
Okay.
and I've always been, I shouldn't say I've always been a casual user. When I was when I was in middle school and high school, I used it a lot more so in high school.
Yeah.
And 420 used to mean for me going outside after school and seeing like a plume of smoke coming out of my friends' cars and being like, all right, let's go. But now, now as a 40-year-old mother, I like kind of roll my eyes at the whole 420 thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I feel like it should have just kind of went away when everything started becoming more normalized. But then I also realized there is validity to it because then you can recognize other people who, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Over time, it has changed in a lot of ways, like the way what it means to me, 420 itself. But the actual plant, so I used it as a young adult, but then I started going, I'm sorry, I was prescribed a bunch of pharmaceuticals because I had been diagnosed with Crohn's disease and endometriosis in my early 20s. So honestly, the pharmaceuticals they had me on, and I'm not just talking about painkillers, I'm talking about um, Topamax for migraines, which has been colloquially termed as Dopamax if you've ever used it. Like I was on so many different medications that I was loopy enough as it was, just
Right.
off of the pharmaceuticals. I was like, I don't need I don't need any cannabis or weed or anything because I'm already high enough, like basically I was like, I kind of was choosing pills over plants for a while because I
Okay.
was believing, I was trusting my doctors. I was thinking this will make me feel better eventually. And if it didn't, my doctor was very quick to give me another prescription to balance
Yeah.
those,
Man.
you know, I mean, like a Pez dispenser, it was just
Whew.
one prescription after another. And so, it took a major life event, me moving to Florida, to really uproot my whole system.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was a while ago. This was about 10 years ago. So the opioid crisis was a lot more prevalent in South Florida before it was anywhere else.
Right.
Rehabs were a dime a dozen down there. Pill mills were everywhere. And when I say pill mills, I mean clinics that purport to be pain management clinics
Yeah.
that were really giving out in very unethical, to say the least, ways,
Right.
charging people hundreds of dollars a visit. I couldn't afford that, and my doctor that I transferred to down there had stopped prescribing Schedule 1 medication.
Okay.
So for that, for me, that meant stopping Xanax abruptly for my anxiety
Mm.
and stopping. I'd been taking very low doses of opioids. So my body went into shock basically. And I was taking things from the, Rite Aid, whatever I could get at Rite Aid basically.
Right.
And then long story short, tried out some tried some kratom at a local kava
Oh,
bar, like
really?
right in that time frame. Yeah, and it was like the universe was like, "This is what you need. This is the answer."
Yeah.
And so that naturally led to me using cannabis again, because my friends that I made at the Kava bar, they were all cannabis smokers,
Yeah.
not all of them, but
Right.
and
Right.
it wasn't medically legal there yet, and it was just becoming the medical program. Sorry, the medical program was just coming online, but it was still so restrictive. Um, Even with Crohn's disease, I didn't qualify, so I was buying it from an illegal source, I guess is the
Yeah.
best way to put it. But then I started to realize, like, wow, this is a burgeoning industry. I had no idea really, because I was in Florida and it's a different world down there. No offense if you live there, but
Sorry,
I
Florida.
just
It is a
I'm
different
not
world down there.
anymore. Yeah. And I'm back in Maryland now, but I was just starting to understand, like, this is a big thing. And at the same time, I'm a freelance journalist, but I also do content creation for like marketing companies. I've always been in digital marketing. So I'm always kind of hearing about the next big thing in content, right? And so I figured, well, the cannabis industry really doesn't have a lot in the way of digital marketing. So I tried to get in that way at first, and
Right.
I had some clients and I did some just basic like ghostwriting, content writing, website copy, that sort of thing. And that snowballed into the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. What's the podcast? What is the podcast? What do you talk about primarily?
Well, okay, so I have two, but the first one that I'll talk about, which is the big one, is Your Highness podcast. I say it's the big one because
Your
it's
Highness.
yeah, because it's been almost 6 years. We're in our eighth season, and when I started it, the intention was to focus women and non-binary folks who were in cannabis. It was really all started to just kind of highlight business owners and things like that. But then I started to realize that I wasn't getting excited about the episodes so much, the upcoming interviews, because it was,
Uh,
to me, it was turning into like an infomercial almost,
oh,
like
okay.
everybody was just coming on to sell their wares basically.
Oh,
And hey, that's valid, that's definitely part of the game. But with my background in journalism, I always want to dig a little bit
yeah,
more
of
and get
course.
get to the so it started to shift into, I like to say, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. So
Mm-hmm.
more than talking about the actual plant itself, we talk about things like accessibility. That's a big topic I talk about a lot. And what that looks like can mean so many different things. I mean, just accessing the plant, having access to the plant is what I meant to say.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like such a simple thing for some people, especially when you live in a state that has adult use, but it's not. It's not a simple thing for someone who's deaf and can't go in and speak to anybody, because there are no translation types of services in place. And there's just a lot of the cost.
Yeah.
The cost is prohibitive. And a lot of the products are not great quality. I mean, I'm in Maryland now, and while I prefer to smoke flower, raw flower, however you want to say it, I like to smoke pre-rolls,
Yeah.
but the flower is so bad right now, the quality that you can get here from the dispensary. It's literally like setting your money on fire. Like I get angry now instead of relaxed when I
Wow.
get these
Why is the
pre-rolls.
quality so bad? What's the reason for that?
Well, um,
I really want
I
to
think
know.
it's a lot more business really. It's the fact that Maryland is primarily MSOs, what they call MSOs, multi-state operators.
Hmm.
So it's like a monopoly essentially. And the quality control is sketchy at
Hmm.
best, because there are a lot of there are a lot of things at play. But I've done a couple of reports where I found that a lot of these testing places are accepting bribes, or they're changing
Hmm.
the numbers for companies and things like that. So I'm not sure exactly how to explain the reason why
Yeah.
what I get is so terrible, other than the fact that, under capitalism, a lot of these big businesses will just sell you crap because you'll buy it, right? Like,
Right.
if they're going to make the money, then and they don't really care about the patient's experience because they think they have a product that sells itself. So, I mean, that's just one way of explaining it. I'm sure there are a lot of other ways to explain it, like the conditions it's grown in and things like
Yeah.
that. But if you're not growing it yourself, there's so much that gets lost in the process because it
Right.
has to go through so many different things before it gets to you. So I think that's most of it, and that is going to change soon in July. It's the law is changing here.
Oh, I
So,
know. My family lives in Maryland, and
oh, do they?
oh yeah, in Crofton area, and
Oh, no.
we went to a dispensary. It's medical and stuff right now, and I thought, man, this is a fairly uptight situation here in Maryland.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it feels too uptight to me. Whereas
It's
like,
very uptight.
like I'm in Washington State, and Washington and Colorado like led the way many years ago. I think like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that. And it's like going to a gas station and walking in and getting something and leaving. It feels very casual. And also like they've spent a lot of time. They're like, yeah, we've been doing this a while, type of thing. I don't like the uptight weed experience going to an dispensary. Geez.
No, and it's difficult here. People ask if I'm like locally involved in the cannabis scene here, and
Yeah.
I'm not really because it's very buttoned up. My husband actually is the general manager of a dispensary, so he
Mm-hmm.
has to deal with a lot more than
Yeah,
I
weed is
do.
like literally in your life all the time. Like it's just
Yes,
everywhere for you.
it is. I tried to compartmentalize, but it's like there's just no point. I just
Yeah, and you literally have a weed life. Like,
I do. But it's funny though, you brought up a good point because when I first started the podcast 6 years ago, I was interviewing mostly people in your area, mostly
yeah,
people from the West Coast who were like so used to your experience going
right,
into a place that seems comfortable and it's not taboo and it's not, as stigmatized. And I'm interviewing them and asking them questions like I'm just genuinely like, wow, you have that. And I had some guests that were kind of I don't want to say like judgmental, but like
mm,
they had that attitude, like, yeah, we're the West Coast, like we've been doing this a
right,
while, you know.
right. Yeah, and
I had a couple of those experiences, like, how do you not know this is a thing and you have
yeah.
a, you know, cannabis podcast? And I'm like, well, I mean, we're all
Well, you're
having
learning.
wildly
You know
different
what I mean?
experiences.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but not everyone had that viewpoint in the beginning. So there was some
right.
struggle there, but I mean, only a little bit, mostly.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. It's wild though. Like it's so different from state to state, and I feel like we're at a tipping point. But I did want to ask. I don't think I've asked anybody this. Again, this is all off the cuff. I told you before we started. I have no clue what I'm gonna say. I just roll with it. But what's the what state have you had the best weed experience?
Oh, well, I'm from Maine originally, and I will say it was Maine. Um,
Whoa. Why?
well, it was the only time I literally felt like I was flying.
Hey, I'm gonna need that. So
Right? I was like visiting family. We had gone back up for some holiday, and my cousin got into her father's stash, and we smoked. And I literally thought Rob Zombie was coming out of the TV screen. Like, we were watching a music video, and I thought he was like coming out into the
Oh,
living room, and I felt like I flew down the stairs. Like I just felt like I
wow.
was flying everywhere. And I mean, I was too young to care about terpenes and stuff like that. Like I didn't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
know those were a thing back then. But from what I can tell, all of my friends who do go back to Maine or who are in the Maine cannabis space now are saying it's just top notch. It's they're
Wow.
doing it right up there. So
Maine, shout out, big shout out to Maine. I need
never
you.
thought I'd say that.
I need you.
I know.
Like,
New York would
you
be the
know?
second best.
Okay.
Yeah, New York would probably be the second best. And that, again, it's been so long that when I had it there, it was my uncle calling his, plug to come and
Yeah.
deliver it, and it was like all very hush hush. And now it's like, I don't know, you can get it at the gas station, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like that here in Washington. You can literally get it like, I mean, I live in a really tiny town and like 5,000 people. There's 4 dispensaries here. I mean, that's insane.
Wow.
Like for all,
Yes.
it's not that many people, but it's like, it's always popping at these dispensaries. And it's almost like a wild experience. Every dispensary is like its own event and has its own charm and feeling. Whereas like I lived in Nevada, I think I've only lived in weed states. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I
Hmm.
feel like
Yeah. Right.
I'm moving to Colorado in like a month and a half. Like I just stay in weed states. I don't want to deal with the other stuff for that. But like Nevada, it's like it's too upscale. Like the dispensaries are way too upscale and it feels uptight again. And I just don't like that, you
Yeah.
know?
No, here it's like, it's almost like going to a doctor, you know.
Yeah.
I don't feel, and I am doing an event. I did one last month, and I'm doing one actually on 420.
Yeah.
And it was fun, but I'm just sitting there at a table in the waiting area. It's not like I can really do anything. It's not like I can go into the dispensary and see people. It's
Right.
so weird.
Yeah, that is strange.
And I think that's another inaccessibility though. I mean, it's like it makes it for certain people just inaccessible. They don't
Yeah.
want to go through that, If you have any kind of social issue, I mean, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, going into that kind of a situation can be very hard. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think some dispensaries are doing some things to make it more
Yeah.
accessible, but right now, I mean, just the industry as a whole, it's difficult to get in and make money and
Yeah, I heard
thrive.
that. I definitely heard.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is? Like I've been hearing that from a lot of people.
I think it's because a lot of people assume this industry would be different than any other industry,
Mm.
and it's not. It's it's just like
Okay.
any other
Yeah.
industry in capitalism. It's like people are like the MSOs, for example. They operate like Walmart and Target and
Mm.
JC Penney's. They don't operate in a patient focused way. And a lot of them will say it's because it's using the words patient makes it seem like it's not adult use, or I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever. But but the bottom line is, they want to keep their labor percentages down. They want to keep their profits up.
Yeah.
And then, the other side of it is the social equity programs are failing left and right.
Mm.
Um, a lot of them are performative or they're gatekeeping, and it's keeping a lot of people out. Like 5 years ago, there was a lot of headlines about women are taking over cannabis, and I was like, yeah, okay, I don't think so.
Mm.
Um, it looked like they were if you took a certain set of facts,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but the reality was it's like there were a lot of people starting their own businesses in the way that, like an Etsy shop starts their own business.
Right.
You're not
Right.
creating a Fortune 500 company, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
yes, technically there was a lot of women founders, but when you start to look at it more and unpeel the onion, it's like, well, okay, are they making any money?
Yeah, that's what I hear though. The money is not there, you know.
Well, I've been doing my podcast, like I said, for 8 seasons now, and I have not had one cannabis sponsor.
Come
So,
on. Wow.
nope. The only, I mean, save for a few pre-rolls that I've recorded for the podcast platform I'm on,
Yeah.
which we know how much that makes you.
That was like really, well, you know how much that makes you.
Yeah, but I've tried to tailor the sponsorship offerings and things like that over the years, and I've tried to make it cheaper. I've tried to, I've done all these different things, and I just always hear, we don't have it in our budget yet, but when we
Yeah.
do.
Right. Right.
And it's a lot of companies that I've been following since day one. Some of these people, they were my first guests, and I've seen
Right.
them grow a lot, and they seem to be doing well. But that's the power of social media, right? I
Of
mean,
course.
so many people
It's the fake
seem like
life.
they're doing well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the fake life. It's the projection that everything's good, even though it's not.
And that is another reason, I think, honestly, because I think so many people wanted the cannabis industry to be taken seriously, to legitimize this industry, that they, you know, maybe fluffed it up a little bit.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, no, and that's my 2 cents. It's okay. You know what? I was thinking about this when you're talking too, and in relation to this in business, what are your thoughts about consumption lounges and those popping up? I mean, good idea, bad idea? I mean, give me the thoughts here.
I think consumption lounges, I think they're a great idea. Like you were saying, the experiences, right?
Yeah.
That to me it would make me want to leave my house to go use cannabis somewhere else. It's like, you know,
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to leave my
like,
house, honestly. I'm like,
right, exactly. Like if it's like a library lounge with, like, I don't know, podcasts playing and
yeah,
really comfortable couches, something like that with like-minded individuals.
yeah. The problem for me though is
I would
like
be
if I
into
went
it.
there, I would never leave probably. I would be there all night. I just feel like I have no desire to do anything right now. Like I don't want to go to
Yeah.
bed. I don't know, man.
I don't get that high anymore though. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with my tolerance being way too high.
Wow, geez,
But
man.
I
Jeez.
know. I've been using it for a long time, so but also I try not to get that high anymore. I mean, there were days where I would be that person for sure. Like
Yeah.
I'm not that person anymore so much. I just eat an edible and be like, I don't care how many milk. What are you talking about?
Wow, jeez, man. Wow. See, I'm an edible eater. I'm not a big, I don't smoke really. Every once in a blue
Yeah,
moon, literally very rare. I'm a big edible person, but just once a week, just to kind of,
yeah,
just to tap into something different for that.
right.
But I don't have a huge tolerance. I just have like a 10 milligram and then, have some fun, have some snacks, watch some great movies.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my experience on a regular.
That's a great experience to
Yeah.
have,
Yeah. I mean, I don't want
seriously.
to be too high. I mean, that's too much. But if I was
No.
out experiencing that, I still probably wouldn't want to move that much and go because I'll be like, I'm comfortable here. Like, I don't, I'm not going anywhere else for a while.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I could see that for sure.
Especially if I have my
I think
snacks and
that,
stuff. I'm like, you kidding me?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah. It's been a while since I've had like a good quality smoke sesh like that. So,
yeah,
but when I was doing dabs and things like that, I could totally see that for sure. I stopped doing dabs, the concentrates, because
yeah,
I think that also upped my tolerance.
yeah.
I've
Here it
I've always had
destroys
a
your
high tolerance.
tolerance. Yeah, like,
Yeah, I think it did. Honestly, I used to be okay with smoking, and now
yeah.
it's like what? Um, but I also kind of microdose throughout the day, so I don't know if
Oh,
that has
okay.
anything to do with it. I use different types of plant medicine too, so it's not. I don't just use cannabis. I use kratom. I use
Yeah.
uh, mushrooms,
Yeah,
different types of
you're like me.
mushrooms.
I'm a big mushroom person, but see, my usage is very like spread out. Like I'm just like a,
Mhm.
a go big heroic dose, and then I don't do it again for like a year. And I
It's
go
heroic
back.
dose. I need to
Yeah.
learn more about that. I saw that on your podcast
You haven't
and
done that?
I was listening to past episodes. I probably have. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
I put that on to listen to later, but what does that mean? Like just one
yeah, the
big
heroic
dose?
dose is usually somewhere around, well, some people debate it, but I would say anywhere around like 4 grams and above. And
Okay, then
I've
I've
done that.
definitely done
Yeah, yeah.
that.
You've
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious when it happens. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, whoa. But it's
Like
just such a
time
meaningful
stands still.
experience. Yeah, like what you know what I did this past summer is this is the podcast, just me riffing and asking questions. I it was a couple of I wanted to do with a couple of my really good friends and experience that friendship together. Like, so I had set the scene and I had all this like techno music playing inside my house, and then I had this very relaxing music outside in my front yard with the apple tree and stuff, and it's like in a cul-de-sac, and but the sound travels like crazy where I live. So like
Wow.
we're tripping major ball sack, man. I'm telling you, like it is so crazy. And we're laughing the hardest a human has ever laughed in their life, like ever. And I can imagine my neighbors are like, who lives here? Like, what is this? Like, these guys are literally laying on the lawn in this guy's house.
Were you crying at any point? Were you like laughing, crying? Because I've been there where I've taken a
You know,
heroic
no,
dose.
I did that inside the house. But
Uh-huh.
like, you know, it looked like we had been taken because like no, I'm not joking. It was like at one point after like 5 hours, we went inside and experienced like the imagery of the TV and the music, and we left our shoes, our phones, like so, you know, just a bunch of stuff. It looked like someone took us. Like it was just like it was wild, man. It was so meaningful though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
wild. I once had an experience like that with my husband before we had our son, and
yeah.
we swore we felt like time literally stopped. We stopped on the
Mm,
street and we're like, "Do you feel that?
yeah. You feel it? Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you feel that?" And we both felt it at the same
That's
time.
strange.
It was like, "Whoa."
That's wild.
But I do love mushrooms for the neuroplasticity, I
Yeah.
think it really helps me look at things differently.
Yeah. You're doing it often though? You're doing it pretty often?
Right now I'm doing what they call stacking. I'm sure you've
What
heard
the
of
heck is
that.
stacking? Is different from microdosing?
It's when
Like
you well, it's a different, not so different. My friend Stephanie's a lot better at explaining this. But the lion's mane, so you use lion's mane and niacin, and then you take the psilocybin in a very small dose. And
mhm.
basically, the lion's mane and the niacin balance it out, so you don't feel the trippy effects so
Mhm.
much. It's more about reducing anxiety,
Yeah.
increasing neuroplasticity, reducing depression, things like that.
Yeah.
So you're not tripping balls.
Yeah. No, but I
you
want
know?
that. Like
I know. I was getting my hair done last month, and I was telling this the woman doing my hair, who I used to go to cosmetology school with, about it. And I was like, "So yeah, you." She was like, "So what's the point?"
yeah,
I was like,
exactly. I'm like,
I was like,
uh,
"Well, I mean, we have tiny humans, so we have to
yeah.
be aware of what's going
Well, of
on."
course, yeah. I mean, I have a tiny human too, but I set the stage where that tiny human was not around. Whenever I did stuff, I'm like,
Yeah,
you have to go somewhere else. Like,
yeah, yeah. Mine's not old enough for that just yet, and
okay.
also, like, we don't have any family members who are
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
around to babysit. So, if I had like a really great babysitter that I could trust, I would feel a lot better about doing
Of
those. We're not
course.
there yet.
Yeah. No, my wife and my daughter went on like a weekend vacation to see some friends on the East Coast, and then I had my friends up, so it was like complete
Oh,
like
nice,
go time, you know. And I was like,
nice.
yeah, we were laying in the front yard, like being hysterical, and she's like, that must have been crazy. Like everyone was probably watching you. I was like, yeah, but you know what
Yeah,
the thing about it is, you don't care though. Like you literally don't
yeah,
care. Like there's, you know what it is,
no,
you lose that. How do I say this kind of wall that makes you feel self-conscious about what other people think of you.
mm-hmm,
And there's a big
yeah,
value in that, to like, oh, I wonder if they were, I'm barefoot laying on the ground in my yard, and you just don't care. And it's like, I don't care, whatever, it doesn't matter,
yeah. I think that's the greatest thing about plant medicine. Period. It
right,
makes me care less about all of that. I mean, I'm a person that gets inside of my head a lot, and
right,
so it really gets me out of that,
yeah.
because otherwise, I can really I can really obsess over
Well,
details.
that's part of the whole thing, like, is right, you're on like a loop in your mind sometimes, and it's hard to like stop that record from skipping sometimes. And I think that's part of it,
Absolutely.
is like, oh, I can free myself to think of other things and not be so self-conscious about stuff. And there's a huge value in that.
Absolutely.
You sound like you're a little high today. I'm like,
I probably always sound like that.
yeah, I think you have so much THC in your system from like all your life. It's just Yeah, I know people like you who just seem like they're kind of high regularly, even though they're not. It's like, I think it's just, you just had like lasting damage, basically. Like in a
I
good
mean,
way, but it's like good.
okay.
No,
I'm
this isn't
glad
a
you
rip.
added that.
This is not a rip. This is like, but I love
Oh
people
no.
like you because it's like there's just a lot of joy on a regular basis. And it's just like, man, you're just like, you seem high to me. Like I feel like I'm on that trajectory. No lie.
Yeah.
Like 10 years, I'll be you.
Well, I mean, it that's all good to hear because, the alternative would be me just being cranky
Yeah.
and
Who wants
not,
that? Yeah.
not sociable.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not high right now, but I probably am elevated a little bit all the time. I mean, I think you would prefer me that way.
Yeah. I don't know. Right. It was a total compliment. I mean, some people may think that's not, but like to me, it's totally a compliment. It's kind of like just the joyousness, the laughter, the excitement. I'm like, oh, that's a person I want to know. It's like,
Aw,
yeah, seriously. Do I want the
thank you.
opposite? Of course, I don't want to talk to the person who's the opposite of, wow, this is boring. Like, who wants that? Seriously, who wants to be boring? No one wants to be boring. Seriously, who wants to be boring? Does anybody out here listen to this? Like, tell yourself, I'm happy. I'm a boring person. No human says that. Come on.
No, I don't think they do. I think I've heard people say they want boring lives after
Right. But you
having
don't want to
really
be
wild
boring.
lives.
Like, who wants to be around a boring
No.
person though? Like, I mean, it's like you're like no interesting conversation, not particularly interesting. It's like, oh, I just want, maybe you want to stress like less drama in your life and you don't want a lot of conflict. Totally get that. I want that too. But to like not be interesting at all to other people, that's not desirable. Yeah.
No, no, it is not. Especially when you write about other people so often. It's like I do have to up my game.
Yeah.
I
Right.
have to be more fun, share more of myself, so
Right.
I'm trying.
Yeah, but that's the thing as a podcast host too. Like you have to be engaging, you got to be interesting. You're part of the conversation. So, like, what are you bringing to it? And if it's just kind of like you're kind of boring with it, I mean, unless you're just like reading a meditation or something, there's a time to be kind of just chill and stuff. But if you're talking to other people in the podcast, you got to give me something,
Yeah, yeah. Yes, that is so true. And there are definitely people who just do that whole rote thing where they say this is what I'm working on and this is who
Yeah.
I am and da, 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 da. And some of that is media training,
Right.
not great
Right.
media training, but
Yeah. I'm not into that.
they
No.
they want to hit their talking points and you're like, but I want to make this an interesting conversation. I've
Yeah.
definitely had that challenge quite a few times over the years.
Really.
I've not even aired some episodes because well, I don't expect everyone to listen to my podcast before they come on it, but I
I'm the
expect them to
same
take
way.
just a couple of minutes to find
Yeah.
out what I'm about, you
Yeah.
know?
Of course.
And like I said earlier, I don't want to have an infomercial. I respect that you have a business and that you're trying to sell something, but that is not this, I
Yeah.
want to talk about, like recently I had someone come on and talk about suppositories.
Wow.
You know, at its face, is it the most interesting topic? No, but it is. Some people have a hard time talking about them. It is kind of controversial in a way.
Mm.
And we just had a really frank discussion. This woman has a line of suppositories, but for her, it was about so much more than just having a product that's that you can put in your wellness arsenal. She had a family history, with this suppositories. I called it suppositories because of the episode. She had
Yeah.
quite a few stories that went along with
Oh,
the
interesting.
suppositories. So, and there's a lot of different ways that you can use them. And also, they're a very accessible way to get your medicine when you have things like Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
And so, we went that route instead of just talking about, oh, you have a CBD company. Tell me about what made
Yeah.
you start that.
Right.
So that's pretty much where I try to go in. Like, let's go sideways with this.
I mean, this has definitely gone
Like,
sideways. All right, right now.
I have a tendency of I do that often.
We turned into suppository land. This was definitely not. Did not see this coming, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, where are we
I
at
try
right
to do
now?
that.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
now let me ask
You
you this
know, it's
question. So, have you ever had anybody on that was like consuming while you were talking to them, or like they were like you can tell they're fairly high when you're talking to them?
oh yeah.
Really, I haven't
Oh
had
yeah.
that. I had one guy, not recently. That's about it.
Yes. I've had somebody, okay, as we talked about, I do outlines, right?
Hmm.
And I, again, don't expect that you have to read it. It's just kind of a courtesy that I do. But sometimes they are very specific because if the person hasn't given me a lot to go off of before, I will ask a lot of questions and I want to make sure that you're okay with it before we start. And I've had people just not even look at the email, not even open the
Jeez.
outline, and be like so stoned that I'll ask them a question and they will answer me about something completely different. And I can't bring it back, you know?
Yeah. Oh no, you can't bring when someone's high, you cannot bring it back. No.
No. And I've had people sit there like doing their bubbler, and for
Wow.
audio editing, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Sitting there with their like 6 foot bong. Oh, this is a weed podcast, right? Well, we're not that kind of a weed podcast.
Yeah.
There are those kind where people smoke while they're talking and they expect
Yeah.
you to smoke in return. We've never been that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not to say I haven't consumed in the past, but then my husband, who's my audio editor, said,
Yeah.
let's not do that anymore. It makes a lot of, he's like, can you mute yourself while you're hitting the vape? Things like that. So I
Oh man, I never did an episode like that. I actually did one. I wanted to do one where everybody was, doing whatever because I think it actually, I mean, it could be interesting if done in the right amount. You could have some really interesting conversations and that are a little more uninhibited. But if you're just getting completely blown, like, I mean, you're gonna like start talking and literally forget what you were talking about very quickly.
and I've also, and I should take responsibility here. It's all about consuming the right quality,
Yeah.
quantity, not quality, quantity, the type, and all of that. I've had very bad experiences with cannabis in that I've
Yeah.
used sativa strands, and for someone like me, that's not good. I,
Okay.
talk about getting inside my head. The thoughts would be racing, and I was so just like
Yeah.
interviewing people and being like, pew, 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 pew. And then before they could even answer their questions, I'm like, and then this, and then
And then
that
this.
just
Let's
got me
go.
thinking about this. Yeah, yeah. And so if you know me well enough, you're like, oh, you smoked sativa today, didn't you?
Yeah.
Um, I still fall for it sometimes. I'm like, maybe I just need a little boost. Let me try this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't. I can't do that and then function in any kind of
It's
way.
funny. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I still want to do an episode like that because I think it could be fun with the right people. You got to have the right people to do it so you can have a
And the
functional
right
conversation
products
and the right
for sure.
product. You want to have a
Yeah.
functional conversation, but you want to be a little elevated with it. But I still think there's some value. I haven't done it yet, but I just think that it could be interesting. I was just wondering like how that worked for you, but I mean, like a massive bong just on the show. I mean, that would be funny on some level.
But then you'll get demonetized, so you don't want to do
Well,
that.
what's funny about that is like, man, I don't understand the whole how you pick and choose what is appropriate and what isn't. It's like some things it's like, oh, that seems like that wouldn't be, but then my stuff is getting like taken off or I'm getting a strike. Like I don't get the rhyme or reason for this stuff.
No. I mean, I have a lot of friends who work in nonprofit areas of cannabis, and they get shut down just talking about equity programs. I
Come
mean,
on.
it's not even just people using cannabis on screen or whatever on social media, which in itself, in my opinion, is harmless.
Yeah,
Just for the record.
right.
But even just saying the word cannabis and people try to get crafty with it. They put broccoli emojis, but even that is being
Broccoli emojis.
um, what's the word, like censored from different social media platforms.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I think it's TikTok or Instagram is
Hmm.
starting to penalize people who are using the broccoli emoji instead of a leaf or whatever it is. So people get really creative. I've never really gotten that creative. I just don't show myself using anything.
Yeah.
That's pretty much. But like Danielle Simone Brand, who you've had on as a
Yeah.
guest, she is another example. She just showing her book.
Yeah.
She's had a post flagged and shut down. So
So crazy. Right? It's just silly. This is
yeah,
silly
it's a big
stuff,
challenge.
honestly. You know?
It's silly, but it's all because the powers that be
Yeah, the
they know
powers
that
that be.
cannabis and all alternative methods threaten their money makers. They're big advertisers. They're pharmaceutical companies that are financing their platforms in one
Yeah.
way or another. And it's not just pharmaceutical companies. I mean, hemp can replace so many different things.
Right.
So I think it's silly, but it's also
This comes down to money all the
really
time.
frustrating.
You know? So it
Yeah,
always
it
comes
all
down to
comes down to
money,
the money
man.
for sure.
All the
Yeah,
time. Like you're
and
just serving money all the time.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's really what it boils down to, unfortunately, because it is silly. It's silly that plants, I mean, the more you say it, the sillier it sounds that
I know.
plants are criminalized.
It's so
It's
stupid.
yeah,
It's so strange.
yeah,
But you know what? Like
exactly.
LinkedIn's actually a pretty good place. I have to give them a lot of credit. Like I've done a lot of interviews about psychedelics and I post them on there
Mhm.
and it has been awesome. They never do anything about it. And I think it's because it's just
Nice.
such a huge community of psychedelic professionals and users on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And they would get so much flack about it. I haven't done a lot of cannabis episodes, so let's see how this goes on there. But the psychedelic one, it's no problem. Like it is full go on LinkedIn for psychedelic episodes, and it's actually been really surprising. You know?
Psychedelics are definitely, I think, more acceptable in a lot of ways. Maybe
Yeah,
it's the fact that you can make money there right now. I
yeah,
don't
right.
know. It's a different community. Weirdly, I mean, obviously, you're going to have intersecting,
Sure.
people who have crossover potential, but it is to me seeming like it's more of a business than cannabis right now. A more
Yeah.
successful. I think that also maybe those words aren't being tagged quite yet in the algorithms,
Mm,
because it's still on the newer side.
right.
Um, I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, to be honest with you, but I do notice that myself. And to be really honest, my videos that I put up don't get shut down. They don't get flagged. I
Yeah.
don't have any real issues with what I post, but I know a lot of people who do. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
I have. Here's an interesting question. Do you think that uh, cannabis users are also psychedelic users or vice versa, or do you feel like these users are the consumers, should say, the consumers are maybe like against each other, or because I see like a lot of people who consume cannabis also do psychedelics and vice versa.
I would agree, but what I find from being a kratom user, I know we're talking about a different plant here, but I
Yeah.
find that there's this weird opinion. Like there's some people are very opinionated about other types of plant medicine use.
Mm,
They have very strong opinions. And so there is some friction there somewhere,
yeah.
where people are like, don't assume just because I do cannabis that I do psychedelics, or vice versa. Or when I bring up kratom, people are like, oh, that's controversial. I'm like, it's a plant. Yes, I
Yeah.
know there is a lot more controversy around that plant than there is cannabis, but a lot of that also has to do with the way that information is being delivered.
Yeah.
And so it boggles my mind when people in the cannabis industry will still be so quick to judge another plant without knowing any real information about
Right.
it. They'll just say, oh, well, I just did a quick Google search and that looks kind of sketchy. I don't know. And it's like, really? What? What? So it really confuses me, but there are little subsects of people that are just not into trying other things, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just this is cannabis is the only thing that they'll do, or CBD is the only thing that they'll do.
Yeah.
They won't try THC. Um, and or if they do microdose psychedelics, they won't use cannabis. I mean, it's just I'm not saying that that's across the board, but I have
Yeah.
definitely encountered those people. So, I mean,
That's
I would
interesting.
assume if I do assume people use all of the
I know
things.
I do too. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I know some people who are like cannabis is like their final stop. They won't kind of jump into like the psychedelic, like really big heroic, like, whoa, I'm altering my reality largely, mindset.
Right.
I wouldn't say they're against it, but it's like a step maybe too far inward, for them to
Yeah.
go
Oh, yeah.
for that.
Or they've had bad experiences. I've had friends
Yeah.
from high school who won't mess with cannabis in any way, but they will take psychedelics. They will use kratom.
That's
It's
wild to
just,
me. It's a
yeah,
volume problem, I think, because like I've known people who like and I've made this mistake. I mean, you have like a cookie or something, you don't know how much you actually like have eaten of it. I mean, it could be you could be having 50 milligrams, you don't know. And then you're gonna
hmm
have a
hmm
wild, crazy time, just too much. And I was like, well, you need to know how much you're ingesting. Like if your
hmm
only time experiencing this was like you had some brownies and I mean, your mind was blown out of your head. And like, wouldn't you think maybe if you tried an appropriate amount for you and try it, I don't know. I just think like you can't base it off just the one time.
no, no. And you have people like my grandmother, who's 95 years old and has been using cannabis
I
forever,
love that.
but will still not look at it like it's something that could treat her pain or, help her sleep.
Mm,
She has such an old school mentality about it.
sure.
I'm trying to get her to use CBD products, and that has been a struggle. Just
Mm,
because one of them she didn't feel anything, but I'm like, you have to eliminate other things to be able to experience it, right?
yeah.
And I used to roll my eyes at that. I did.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
like I
get where
did.
she's coming
I
from.
did.
I get it. People think CBD is snake's oil, and rightly so for a lot of reasons. I
Yeah.
will sing to the from the rooftops how much I love CBD, but I also understand it's completely oversaturated,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of people selling fake products. And
Mm,
so I get that, but then just to have that that mentality, I'm not going to try anything else. I don't want to look at this a different way. I don't understand that part
yeah.
because I've had bad experiences. I still do, from time to time. We all do. And that's
Yeah.
part of the whole experimentation. I mean, but to me, the payoff is autonomy that I never had with
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Pharmaceuticals, if you there I've been on some that if you didn't take it then every single day, then your body would start to shut down, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
Um and I've had my life completely altered by pharmaceuticals in a lot of ways. And so I can't change those things, like the
Yeah.
the back pain and the bone loss and things like that. But I don't have that with plant medicine. So to me, the
Yeah.
payoff is that I can, yeah, I have some hiccups, I have, it's
Sure.
trial and error. It's constantly trial and error. It's
Most
ever
definitely.
evolving.
It's a lot of trial and error. I feel like,
Mhm.
you know, that's part of being human. Like you go down the well sometimes a little too far. You're like, oh yeah, you know what? I maybe had a little too much, or like me, I always try a different product. I'm not like a singular product type of guy. I'm like,
Me
let
either.
me try these different edibles. Oh, I'm try this one.
Yeah,
Each time I go, I'm like, I want a different
same.
one. And I don't know
Yeah,
what's going to happen to me, but it's kind of the surprise is what I like about it. I'm like, never tried this one. I'm like,
yeah, yeah. If
see
I
what
could send
happens.
products, I'm like, I'll try it. You send me your products. Sure, I'll
Yeah,
try them.
sure. Why not? But I didn't know recently was that like in a lot of these edibles, they put in crazy chemicals in it. And it's like
Mhm.
really harmful stuff. And then so now
Mhm.
I'm smarter about it. So I'm getting stuff that doesn't have these crazy chemicals in it as well. I had no clue until like a couple months ago. Yeah.
Same. And I even have a friend who is the CMO of a company called Fruit Slabs. Her
Mm-hmm.
name is Maggie Wilson, and Fruit Slabs makes these. They're like fruit leather, but they have no added sugars. They're kosher. There's no chemical, and they're like you could taste the quality. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is real whole food,
Right.
and they're the only one really on the market as far as edible companies that is offering that kind of a safe product, for
Yeah.
people with digestive issues. And so that was the other reason why I did the suppositories episode, because suppositories is a really great alternative to that.
Keeps coming back to the
And I'm not
suppository.
going to be like a suppository spokesperson because I never thought I'd be saying that. But
Yeah.
there to me, it's like that's why I look into transdermal, topical. I
Yeah.
try to get it from every different angle so that I'm not so quick to just try everything that gets sent to me.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, it's an ever evolving journey.
I mean, it sure is. It's actually a fantastic journey too. It's like just it's exciting to me, and I love talking to different people that are in the industry or just consumers. It's a fantastic time because of kind of like I said, I think earlier, we're kind of in the tipping point where there's so many states that have either medical or recreational, and it feels like it's just an inevitable time, and psychedelics is starting to head that way. So like, what are your hopes for cannabis for the future, and in America?
Wow, that was a loaded question.
Yeah, I know. I
And
really,
America?
and America, like, I want the
Oh,
big answer.
okay.
I feel like you're high
Because when
enough naturally to tell me.
you said cannabis and America, we could be here for a while. No, I'm kidding.
America's a big place, but I feel like there's a good
Yeah.
answer coming here.
Oh, oof. Well, my hope is that the industry will become more accessible for the people who actually built it,
Yeah.
because people with disabilities, invisible, invisible, minorities, people who are always being left out of situations.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
I would, my hope would be that that changes. My cynic is saying it won't, but my hope would be that it starts to go in a direction that is more patient focused and more of a focus on the fact that plant medicine is medicine, and
Yeah.
we should all be able to experiment with it safely. And so my hope is that we all get the chance to do that at some point in our lives. And my hope is also that there is less misinformation out there
Yeah.
available and more valid research, which I'm seeing that happen. So I do feel hopeful about that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hope out there. And it's kind of like anything that, there's pushback on things, I think, heavily, especially when things are moving in a direction that seem inevitable. You get kind of this scratching that people do, this last scratch. People are like, I just don't want this around. But in their hearts, they know it's inevitable. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And I think we've shown that United States is, whether it's through prohibition way back in the day, whether it's through different things with civil rights, whether it's through gay marriage, all this stuff, these things are just going to happen. And they are positive things for the United States. And like, why are we pushing back against these things? Like, people are drinking alcohol all the time, and just so many deaths related to alcohol. I like a good cocktail, but it's like, we've really we're not highlighting the right things. It's like, why don't you spend time on fentanyl use? Like, how about we get rid of that shit? It's like instead of focus on weed and psychedelics, like, these are not good things. Like, let's have some nuance here. Like, there are things that
Yeah.
are like crippling Americans,
Yeah. Well,
like,
it's the low hanging fruit, It's the
yeah.
low hanging fruit. It's like let's stop the stoners from taking over. But
The stoners ain't
It's just
taking
that
over
like,
anything, man.
yeah, it's that, hey, what's that over there mentality, they're just like,
Yeah,
look over there, because they don't want you to see what's really
yeah.
happening in the
Let's
world.
demonize some dude sitting in his house, watching a movie, having edibles and having snacks. Oh, that's the worst thing in America. Like,
Right, right. I know. I could think of 1,000 other things.
yeah, I know you
Yeah.
could. I feel that. I always feel like you're on the verge of saying something crazy, Diana. You know that? Like, like you got stories, like crazy stories. I know it. I feel it.
Yeah, I do.
You just left it right there. That's okay. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Well, what are you talking about? Are we talking about crazy stories with edibles? Are we talking about?
I don't know. It's
Because
an
I have a
open-ended
lot.
thing. It's literally open-ended. Okay, look, we're gonna tell. You know what we're gonna do before we end this? I say we both tell an edible story that's been particularly interesting to both of us. I think we should do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Florida.
Who's in Florida, man?
um, this is before, again, I could go into a dispensary to purchase anything. So this was when the edibles were like hit or miss. You don't know what you're getting. And I used
Yeah.
to get the Rice Krispie treats, which could be
Oh
anywhere from,
no.
I don't know, 5 milligrams to 100. And
Oh my
anyway, so I was
gosh.
working at for a digital marketing agency, and they were having their holiday party. So we weren't getting any work done. We had an office party. So I was like, all right, I'm getting out early. I'm going to eat this Rice Krispie treat, go home, and just pass out. But then I forgot that I had made plans with my friend to go Christmas shopping. And this is a friend who is very much a weed smoker as well. So I was like, whatever, we'll be fine. I'm not driving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but oh, I forgot to mention, I also had a couple of cocktails at the holiday
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
um, I was only feeling a little buzzed. I wasn't feeling the edible yet. And
Yeah.
we get to the mall, and I don't remember much else after
Oh
that
my
point.
god.
But I know at one point I remember this part, and the rest of it was filled in for me. But I laid down on the floor of the food court
Oh my
to
god.
take a nap. And if this doesn't tell you how Florida the situation was, the
uh,
security guard just comes up and is like, "Are you okay? Do you need help? Do you need some food?"
need some food. Yes, I would like some food.
But like no one else thought it was weird that I was just laying
Yeah.
down to take a nap.
Wow.
And apparently at one point they did try to kick me out of the mall, and I was running from security, and like I went through the candy store and just started grabbing things and bought it. Like I bought a bunch of stuff from H&M. I don't know why or what.
Wow.
I came home and was like, "What is this?"
Jeez, man.
And apparently I'm banned from that mall.
Okay. You got a
I never
banning
went back.
happening. Okay.
I never went back, but my friend was not happy with me. Let's just
Well,
say that. She was like, that was, but I thought it was pretty funny at the
it actually
time.
sounds really funny to me. I don't know. I was like, that sounds hilarious to me. I mean, what'd you do? You bought some stuff and you took a nap. I mean, it's like,
I mean, I didn't try to hurt anybody, I guess.
and you're trying to take a nap.
I
I
just,
mean, are you kidding me?
yeah.
It's like,
I might have tried to talk to some random people. There was a point where I felt like I was dreaming and I was walking through the mall, and I feel like people were talking to me, but I don't
yeah.
know what I said back because I was running away from my friend too. I was like trying to get away from her. And she's like, "Get in
Uh,
the car. Let's go."
you know what's funny? I have a friend who always says when we get high together, he says, only believe about 30% of what I say when I'm high. That's it. Like
Yeah.
everything else, don't believe what I'm telling you. I was like, that sounds about
Yeah.
right. I like that ratio.
Oh
So
yeah. That's a good one. I like that. All right, your
yeah.
turn.
All right, my turn. So this is actually fairly recent. It was during Christmas time. And actually no, 2 Christmases ago, I think. Yeah. So I went, this is in Maryland. This is gonna hit home. And I said, man, like Christmas Eve, I want to get high. I think it'll be fun. So my brother goes, oh yeah, you know what? I got this person who makes these great brownies. They're really good. And I said, I said, wait a minute. I don't like to like have edibles. I don't know how much is in it. I'm just like a 10 milligram guy, really chill. He's like, honestly, I don't know. And I said, well, it is Christmas time, so might as well play a little, spin the wheel. Let's see what it's looking like here. So, I mean, they were delicious. I mean, these brownies were unbelievable. And, but I was a little cautious. So I had, like not even a square, a big square, just kind of like half of the square. And I said, I have no clue how many milligrams I'm eating, but I'm like, eh. So I popped it. My brother popped it, and my dad popped it too, which was very surprising. And it hit him hard very quickly. Because he's not used to it. He didn't do any of that. But it was like a family like high. It was unbelievable. But I
Oh,
tried to
cool.
watch a couple movies on the ground while doing
Uh,
this. Big mistake. Big. I don't know how you feel when watching movies when you're high. It doesn't work for me. It
no.
no, you either. It doesn't work for you.
Well, I've had bad experiences that way. Like I went to see the Fantastic Mr. Fox. I don't know if you remember
No.
that movie
Yeah,
a
I
long time
do.
ago when I was like silly high with my
Yeah.
friends, and I legitimately got so freaked out because I could see the hair on the fox. Like I could see the little hair, and I'm like, it looks too real. I don't
Yeah,
like
it's too
this.
real.
And I can't watch that movie anymore. Like I have
Wow.
had those experiences where I'm like, this is freaking me out. I don't like this. But if it's something I have to follow, it depends. Like Across the Universe is a really good movie to
Yeah,
watch when
yeah, it's
you're
a good
high.
movie. But see, I have a hard time following movies when I'm high. So like I was trying to I said, "Oh, I really want to watch." This was in that movie Don't Look Up came out on Netflix.
Oh,
Leonardo
okay. Yeah,
DiCaprio,
that wouldn't
Jennifer
be a good
Lawrence,
one. I couldn't watch
and I tried to watch it and I was on the ground and now to a casual observer, I looked like I was deeply watching this movie, like deeply understanding it. And it's like a 2-hour movie, whatever. I remembered zero about the movie. Literally, the movie
that.
was flashing in my eyes. I don't remember anything about the movie.
Hmm.
Apparently, I watched another movie too, and I mean, watching very loosely coined watching. So, like 4 hours, I laid on the ground and quote unquote watched movies that I had no clue what happened during the movies. And then, I just went outside myself. Like I started realizing like the person laying on the ground was not me. And I was looking at this person and I was like, yeah, I don't think that's me, honestly. I'm pretty sure that's not me. Like it was trippy, and then
You had like a ghost of Christmas present or Christmas
yeah, it was like, and then I don't know, like
experience.
my mom got us in the car so we could get some Chinese food. And I remember sitting in the car just
Uh,
looking out the window. I'm just thinking, who is this person sitting here? Like, this is
wow.
not me. I just kept thinking the entire night, like, who the hell is this person watching these? I just didn't think it was me. And then by the time I came down, I was like, oh, that's me. Like I came back, I was like, oh, that's me. And so like a month later, I said, oh, let's watch that movie, Don't Look Up. And my wife goes, you did watch it. I was like, let's be honest here. I don't remember anything about that movie. Anything.
Mhm.
And then I watched it and I was like, that's a great movie. Literally, I couldn't recall anything that happened before, but I'm glad I rewatched it because I actually was like, yeah, I don't remember anything about this. And that was like one of the weirdest
That's how my
experiences.
husband is.
Really?
He takes small doses like you.
Yeah.
He's not a macro doser by any means.
Yeah.
And if he takes too much, that's exactly his experience. And I can't tell you how many movies that I've been like, come on, we've watched this. I
He's like, no,
have a
we
much
haven't.
higher tolerance than he does. So he's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't take much for him to get to that point where,
Yeah. I mean,
where he
this
doesn't
rarely
remember
happens to
anything.
me. Like, this is like
Yeah.
maybe happened to me a couple times. It's just because I didn't know how much I was having. And
Right.
listen, I was like, listen, I'm going to roll the dice because it's Christmas time. I don't, I
Yeah.
never do this. And that's kind of the up and down. I would say it wasn't a negative experience for me. It was
Right.
just strange. And I accepted it. Like I
Yeah.
accepted that that wasn't me. I wasn't paranoid. I was just like, man, it's not me. And then once it was me again,
Right.
I was like, wow, okay, I accepted the experience. It's whatever. You know,
But maybe you needed to have that experience.
maybe
I
I did
mean,
need it. Yeah. Sometimes I think the value in these substances is just to like be really self-reflective or detach yourself from
mhm,
you know?
exactly. Exactly that. I mean, I know you've seen those memes that are like me, also me,
Yeah.
the person being like, oh, I never want to drink again. Also me, I'm a constant stream of those memes. My husband and I
Oh.
always tease like, oh, this is one of your me, also me moments.
Me, also me. Yeah.
But I really feel like plant medicine helps me. Sometimes I'll say something and I'll be irritated about a situation, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, but wait a minute. And then I start to think about my own role in that, and I
Yeah.
never used to do that. I used to just get angry or frustrated
Yeah.
or whatever. I used to just have a response without really
Right.
examining that response and really taking ownership of my part in that.
Yeah.
So I think it really does help with that, like detaching yourself. Sometimes when you're even like, that wasn't like you just said, like not a positive experience, but it,
Yeah.
it, it was an experience.
Yeah. It
And
wasn't negative.
I got to kind of figure some things out. Like, this
Yeah.
isn't for me. Maybe I need to take it down a notch.
Yeah. And then I had great Chinese food after that. It was unbelievable. Like I was like,
I mean,
it's all
I
part of
can't
it.
think of, that's the dream,
It's the
right?
dream.
That's
Yeah.
the dream.
That's the dream. Yeah. I mean,
Great Chinese food after that.
I
Woo.
didn't have to get it. I had to lift no fingers to get it. I literally just was like, oh, it's here once we got back. And then I just started eating and I was like, wow, this is the best tasting Chinese food ever. And that's, I think, another value. Like I've turned a lot of people on to weed.
Whew.
And one of the number one things they
Yeah.
always tell me is food tastes so much better this way. I was like,
It
of
helps
course
me
it does.
eat, period.
Yeah.
Because I have Crohn's disease. I mean, that was
Right.
the biggest thing for me, because nausea was overwhelming. And I love to eat. I'm Italian. I love to cook,
Yeah.
and obviously I love to eat. But
Well,
I,
obviously.
it it was really getting back into cannabis after the pharmaceuticals that like
Yeah.
made it so that I could eat again, because I was at a point where I was only drinking smoothies and things like that,
Yeah.
and I was skin and bones. I wasn't really nourishing my body.
Yeah.
So it does make things taste a lot better, but it also makes it easy to taste, right? Like, it makes it
Yeah.
tasting the possibility. That's so huge for so many people.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, and some people struggle with that. And I've known people like that. It just gives them the ability to have an appetite again. And that alone is really good. And I don't know, for me, sometimes it's like a bottomless pit. There's a little, I'm just like, wow, everything tastes amazing. It's just like
I
so
mean, my
delicious.
body wants me to be that way. Like, there's
Yeah.
the part of me that's always like hungry.
Yeah.
I love to cook. I love food, but it's just like the nausea.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I've been able to manage that so much better though, with all of the different types of plant medicine I have. So,
Right. Right.
this isn't, but 10 years ago it was like I was making all these great dinners and things and having friends over, and I wasn't only able to eat like a tiny portion, if
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
I was just avoiding eating when I was going out in public,
Right.
period, which makes people ask you a lot of questions, and that
Yeah.
was uncomfortable.
Right.
So, yeah.
Man, I
So it
have to tell
helps a
you,
lot of ways.
Diana, this is one of the better conversations about weed I've ever had in my life. Like,
Oh.
yeah, it's because of you. You're very free spirited about it. And like, you're not like hiding your experiences. You're just like, yeah, I've had some bad times, some good times, still having some weird experiences. I love that. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thank
honest.
you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Well, listen, man, I could talk about this forever, but please tell everyone how they could
Yeah.
connect with you and learn about your podcast, the whole deal.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can find me on all the socials at Your Highness Podcast or at Diana Ashley Crash. I'm also on Twitter at Dark8118082. Terrible
Wow, that
screen name, I
sounds
know.
very
Um,
ominous. I mean,
right? I know. I did it so long ago, but anyway. you you can find Your Highness Podcast on all the platforms, and you can also find my other podcast called Getting Personal with Plant Medicine on all of the platforms. And if you want to reach out to me for any reason, you can email me at yourhighnesspodcast@gmail.com.
beautiful. You know what? One of the craziest things that happened. This happened like 40 minutes ago. My screen went out for some reason. I have no clue why. So I haven't seen you this whole time. Mostly.
Oh, wow.
I'm guessing you can see me. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I definitely cannot see you at all. It's-
Oh,
I've been
and
trying to
I
fix
I
it.
did my makeup and
I
everything.
know, man. What a waste. Like, but so I
Oh,
can't
well.
actually. It was funny. I can't actually stop this from recording. I'm
Oh,
sure I'll be able to figure it out.
okay.
So I'm gonna have you just go out of this, and then I'll figure it out. I'm sure to be
Okay.
fine. But seriously, thank you so much for your
Okay.
time. And this will be out next week. And I'm a big fan of you,
Oh, I'm a big
Diana.
fan of
Huge
you
fan.
too, and I hope
Yeah.
we get to work together again.
Yeah,
Thank you so
I think we
much.
got to make that happen, and we should get high together sometime at some point in life,
Sure.
for sure.
I love that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, take care, Darian, and I really appreciate it. Seriously, have a
Thanks,
great day.
Diana. Appreciate it. Bye.
Take care. Bye.